one and all of my geeks, and we're all geeks about something. Welcome to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, and I want to start this show with some great news. I am ecstatic for this news that I'm able to finally let the cat out of the bag and share with you what's been going on behind the scenes at Geek Therapy Radio, what's been going on behind the scenes in my life. I am so happy to share this with all of my listeners because I do, at this point, especially consider you family. Most of you have been here, a lot of you have been here since the start of Geek Therapy Radio back in spring of 2017, I believe it was, and you've stuck with me all the way through. I got a lot of new listeners from all over the world, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. I don't know how you found me. I don't care how you found me. As long as you have found me, I know I've done collaborations with the 8-Bit Guy and Colin from This Does Not Compute and Clint from Lazy Game Reviews, James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd. Way back in the day, I did a show with Austin Evans. So I've collaborated with George Norrie, has always been a mentor to me and a friend of the show. George Norrie, host of Coast to Coast AM and a bunch of other sci-fi shows on the History Channel. George Norrie. So I've done collaborations with many kind of people more famous than I. So however you found Geek Therapy Radio, I fully appreciate it. So the good news is that I was afraid of this, but you will not experience any sort of service interruption in Geek Therapy Radio because nothing is going to change with how Geek Therapy Radio is delivered. And I will go into more details. So you won't have to resubscribe. Geek Therapy Radio is not going to change providers. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's status quo as far as you are concerned as the subscriber. And the reason why I was getting out ahead of this is because I have officially put in my 2 weeks notice at iHeartMedia. For those of you who don't know, my full-time job at iHeartMedia obviously isn't the radio show. My full-time job here at iHeartMedia is board operator at the radio station 740 KTRH AM in Houston. I have put in my 2 weeks notice because I have been headhunted. I can officially say this now because it's official. I've accepted the position yesterday. The prior weeks I've just been discussing with this entity. The Houston Museum of Natural Science has hired me, and I have officially accepted the position of YouTube channel manager for the Houston Museum of Natural Science. That means Geek Therapy Radio is about to get so good it beggars belief. My 9 to 5, so to speak, it's a salary job, so it's not 9 to 5. Technically, I can do a lot of working from home. We'll get to that in a second. What a blessing that is. My 9 to 5 will be basically creating YouTube content and controlling everything that the museum puts onto YouTube, with the goal being to grow the YouTube channel both in subscriber base and views. Do you know what that means? So if you're a subscriber to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube right now, and you see the B-roll that I get, and I kind of constrain to what I can do with where I am and what I have access to, and I like to think I do a decent job. Now I have the keys to a freaking world-class museum, and every exhibit in that museum, and all the curators and scientists and PhDs and doctors and everybody involved with the museum. Fossil digs. I plan to go out to do stuff with NASA and the Fine Arts Museum and go to SpaceX launches, maybe go to volcanoes. I have keys to the kingdom to make the best YouTube videos, I want to say, of all time, in my opinion, because picture this. Now, I would assume that I needed to put a definitive line in the sand here with, I'm not talking about my Geek Therapy Radio channel necessarily getting better. I believe it will, but I am not pushing that. My goal, I'm being paid to make the Houston Museum of Natural Sciences YouTube channel better than ever and make those videos as good as they can possibly be, using footage from dinosaur skeletons to gemstones to gosh, whatever other exhibit, whatever looks cool. You're going to see on the Houston Museum of Natural Science, not exclusively, but just imagine this. Kind of imagine, put yourself here. And this is something I brought up to the museum that I would do, part of the strategy for building the YouTube channel. So obviously, the Houston Museum of Natural Science YouTube channel is going to grow because I'm going to showcase exhibits and talk to curators and scientists about whatever's going on at the museum and about specific exhibits. That content will be grade A. Obviously, it's going to be immaculate. It's going to be just the best I can make it. But part of my job is also to optimize videos for SEO, for search engine optimization and results, and get new eyeballs and new subscribers and build the channel. So imagine this. Imagine a new Mac comes out. This is kind of my vision for this part of the channel. Imagine like a new laptop comes out. Let's say the 14-inch MacBook. Ideally, what would happen is people are looking up reviews for the new 14-inch MacBook Pro whenever it comes out, or 14-inch MacBook. I don't know what they're going to do. It's not out yet. I'm just saying, picture that it comes out. The new 14-inch MacBook comes out. And now you go through all your normal channels of watching reviews for this laptop. So you go to MKBHD and you see an awesome review of the new 14-inch MacBook Pro. Then you go to Linus Tech Tips, LTT, and you watch a spectacular review of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And you go to Austin Evans, and you go to Jonathan Morrison, and Snazzy Labs, Quint over there at Snazzy Labs. Right? What? Quint, right? Quint? Yeah, Snazzy Labs. You go through all those normal, Dave 2D, all those kind of normal and spectacular avenues for the review of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And now you go to see the review of the 14-inch MacBook Pro, but using B-roll from around a museum. Seeing that MacBook, the 14-inch MacBook Pro, at the foot of an actual T-Rex skeleton, or in the butterfly arboretum, or with actual moon rocks, or rocks from Mars, and asteroids, and any other fascinating exhibit, gemstones, and I can't even off the top of my head just imagine all the kind of amazing access to outstanding B-roll to help make these reviews. So it's going to be a review like you see elsewhere, with my own kind of personal touch to it, the way I do reviews, but using the most spectacular and engaging B-roll imaginable. And the goal of these, because I know you might be thinking, just like the museum might be thinking, I've discussed this at the museum, this is not news to them. You might be thinking, well, that's great, but a laptop review has nothing to do with the museum itself. You could see where that would kind of be an issue. Well, the laptop review would have something to do with the museum, because I would, in any review, and I'm just using the laptop as an example here, I will tie in actual elements and exhibits and insight from the museum. So just as a very loose example, 14-inch MacBook Pro powered by the M1X processor. Let's talk to our geologist about what makes the silicon inside this chip so special. And I have an actual geologist talking about elements within the actual laptop itself to give viewers such an unparalleled insight into whatever product I'm viewing, and understanding a science, a curiosity, and a exposure to this product like they've never had before. So you're not just watching a laptop review, you come away from a laptop review smarter about science in general and more curious than ever about science in general. And I can use everything at my disposal at the Houston Museum of Natural Science to that effect. So I will be making videos like that. Those are the videos that I call the meet and greets, because that is what people are searching for. That's what generates hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands, possibly over 1 million views, theoretically, to grow the channel. So they come to Houston Museum of Natural Science, they see this product review that is unlike anything else ever on YouTube, and they subscribe. So the subscriber count builds, so that when the other videos come out, the videos that are specific to new exhibits or any exhibit at the museum, you have a subscriber base of 500,000, 600,000, a million subscribers, and now those videos instantly are generating 10,000, hundreds of thousands of views, and bringing all that much exposure to the Houston Museum of Natural Science. Growing it on social media, growing it on YouTube. I've got all these visions and all these plans for what I do at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. To recap, I have officially accepted the position at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. I will be the YouTube channel manager at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, which means that the Houston Museum of Natural Science YouTube channel is about to get even better than it already is. And I would imagine that Geek Therapy Radio YouTube channel is going to get way better than it already is, because I'm going to have the free time, more time and resources to make Geek Therapy Radio YouTube better. But the focus, because obviously they're paying me, is going to make the museum like my first freaking priority. So you might be thinking, well, what kind of content were you going to put on your YouTube channel versus on the museum's? Well, I think Geek Therapy Radio YouTube is going to be more catered towards, for instance, if I'm going to do something fascinating, exploring cassette tapes and cassette recording, or I get a reel-to-reel or something like that, supercharging my lawnmower or doing, things like that, really geeking out over very kind of specific things. I think that's going to, what Geek Therapy Radio YouTube is going to be mostly, and the Houston Museum of Natural Science is going to get most of my energy. So, about hours and family and my role at iHeart and how that's important to you, how that affects you, the listener. I was concerned. I was managing my expectations, let's just say. Before this became official at the museum, I believed it would have made all the sense in the world to expect that me putting in my 2 weeks notice at iHeartMedia means iHeartMedia came back to me and said, well, you can't have the show on the station anymore. You don't work here anymore. You don't have the show anymore. When I put in my 2 weeks notice, my boss almost immediately offered, he said, and we want to keep Geek Therapy Radio on the air. I said, oh, okay, well, that was going to be, my next topic of discussion is I would like to keep Geek Therapy Radio on the air, but I would, understand if iHeart didn't do that. He's like, no, we're keeping Geek Therapy Radio on the air, and you keep the podcast going as is, and, that's, he would hate to see me go. He hates to see me go from my normal 9-to-5 position, because I've been here for almost 12 years, but he understands moving on to bigger and better opportunities, and he wants to keep my radio show on the air. The only change is that instead of 3 hours over the weekend, my show goes down to 1 hour over the weekend, which is fine. And that's all I would have fought for, to keep my show on the air here in Houston. Just let me keep 1 hour on terrestrial radio and let me keep the podcast going as is. So there is no change to you, the listener. I am not having to create a new Spreaker account and migrate all my audio over to there. There's no interruption to you. It's just stay subscribed where you are. The radio station technically hosts my radio show, hosts the podcast, and there is no change on your part, which is amazing. One reason I wanted to keep an hour on the radio, because you might be wondering, well, Johnny, it's all podcast now. Why are you so adamant about keeping an hour on the radio? Well, I wanted to keep my toe in the door of broadcast radio, because I can say this because it's something that we discussed, and it's all kind of speculative anyways. It was just kind of speculative discussion here. The museum might want to talk about having an hour on the radio. So the Houston Museum of Natural Science maybe presents Geek Therapy Radio, or Geek Therapy Radio presented by the Houston Museum of Natural Science, or just it could be called something completely different. But me keeping an hour on the radio facilitates that easier should the museum go down that route. So, no change in how you listen to Geek Therapy Radio, but at some point in the future, don't be surprised, and I would imagine hopefully most of you would be happy for me, that you hear Geek Therapy Radio presented by Houston Museum of Natural Science, or Houston Museum of Natural Science presents Geek Therapy Radio. As far as a potential title sponsor, that makes all the sense in the world. And you know who I have on the show almost every single week? Almost every single podcast? actual scientists and geologists and biologists and curators from these exhibits. That would only make the radio show and the podcast that much better. It's not like having a title sponsor. Chevrolet presents Geek Therapy Radio, and then I talk to like sales associates and whatever. I mean, money's money, but it wouldn't be a great fit for the show, and I probably just wouldn't do it. Not as a title sponsor. There's a difference between title sponsor and then mentioning a business on the show. So I would mention a Chevy dealership and go buy electric cars from Chevy within the show, but I don't think I would ever make Geek Therapy Radio presented by Chevrolet, or Chevrolet presents Geek Therapy Radio. That's kind of, you're a little bit too under the thumb with the title sponsor. And if I'm going to be under the thumb of anybody as a title sponsor, it would be a museum. It would be a perfect fit. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, that it may not happen, and it may not happen that way. If and when the museum decides to have a radio show and have me host it, it may be completely free and separated from the Geek Therapy Radio entity, which would be fine and completely understanding. But again, we'll cross on that bridge when we get to it. I'm just saying, across the board, Geek Therapy Radio is going to get so much better going into the future here. In the near future, there's no interruption to your service, and it's going to be great. Houston Museum of Natural Science. By the way, let me preemptively ask if you want to subscribe to the Houston Museum of Natural Science YouTube channel. I have not done anything on there yet. As of recording, it is January. What's the date today? January 11th, 2020. I haven't added any content to the YouTube channel. I'm just saying preemptively go subscribe to the Houston Museum of Natural Science. Just type in HMNS or just type in Houston Museum of Natural Science, and it will come up, and I will, of course, link to it in the podcast description. That is my new 9-to-5 job, and having your support would be amazing. I haven't asked them yet, and maybe some of them are listening, and I hate to throw you guys under the bus if you do, but David, 8-bit guy, I don't think I mentioned you earlier, but David, I would, I might collaborate with you on some museum stuff. We'll see. Clint might collaborate with you. Colin might collaborate with you. There is some collaboration, and it would all be just amazing. I will try to collaborate. I mean, the best I can do is request, hey, David, you want to, do a little piece here for this video I'm doing for the museum? And I have no doubt in my mind that most of the content creators that I've been involved with over the past few years in Geek Therapy Radio would love to do it if they have time and the inclination to do so. But I can't. Obviously, it all rests on them. The worst they can say is no, In trying anything in life, the worst that people can do is say no. I've had people who do podcasts say, well, I'm just afraid I won't ever get guests, or that, this person has 1 million subscribers on YouTube. There's no way he's going to pay attention to me or come on my show. And to which I respond, hey, I've been there. And the worst they can say is no. I mean, the worst they can do is not respond, just like not even see it or not respond or say no. And that's the worst. Once you kind of get over that mental hurdle of knowing that the worst they can do is say no, it's not like they're going to come back at you and start personally insulting you and come burn down your house or anything like that. The worst that anybody can say to you is no. So if I'm doing something for the museum or Geek Therapy Radio or whatever, and anybody I reach out to says no, it's fine. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. I'm not heartbroken about it. But things are going to be very, very cool for you, the listener and viewer, both on Geek Therapy Radio podcast, Geek Therapy Radio YouTube, and, of course, the Houston Museum of Natural Science YouTube channel. So go subscribe to Houston Museum of Natural Science YouTube now so that I can see you when I post my first content there. All right, so as far as changes to life, again, you guys and girls are all, I consider you family here. Not only is it more pay, and I absolutely will not get specific about that, but it is a blessing as far as salary is concerned. But the biggest thing, and I got to be careful what I say here because I don't want them to undercut me or think that they can. I can comfortably say that maybe I shouldn't. I will have, the hours are much better. The hours are way, way way better. I am no longer anchored to a radio console. Even outside of COVID pandemic times, I have just an immense amount of freedom to make effectively, it's just to make the channel as good as possible. So I'm not going to be at the museum 5, 6, 7 days a week. I'm not anchored there. The only time that I really have to be there is to fulfill my purpose as the YouTube channel manager. So getting B-roll, getting footage, filming things around the museum, filming things around Houston, maybe traveling elsewhere to go to make a good video. I'm not going to be isolated to a cubicle full time. So having an infant, having just had my son born a couple of months ago, that is an immense help. So having that freedom and flexibility is an immense help. The museum says they don't expect me to be there 24 hours a day or 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because they figured that most of my time is going to be spent editing. And that is 100% true. And I can be home to do that editing. There are going to be many 16-hour days where I just sit there in the zone editing the best content possible, because that is literally what I'm paid to do, is make the best content possible. Where Geek Therapy, my YouTube channel now, Geek Therapy Radio YouTube, everything I've been able to do on there is extremely part-time. That whatever value and quality is there on my Geek Therapy Radio YouTube channel, that's just doing it when I can. When it's my job, I'm being paid salary full-time to do nothing but make the YouTube content as good as it possibly can be. I'm going to be doing a lot of editing, a lot of work at my PC from home. There's no reason for me to be in a cubicle at the museum. I don't even know if the museum has cubicles. So that flexibility is going to be amazing. The idea of SpaceX doing a space launch in South Texas and me being able to be like, hey, I'm going to go for work, go bring the cameras and stuff and go shoot footage from a SpaceX launch. And let me tell you right now, I'll let you know this right now. My full intention, I've put in my items request list to do this job. None of it's been approved. I mean, I just sent it in like an hour ago, so I don't know what's been approved and what won't be approved, but I'm just telling you my intention here. I plan on shooting a lot of footage exclusively in 4K, and in the very near future, shooting it at 8K and beyond. Now, I know that 8K is not the standard yet, and 12K is definitely nowhere near being a standard yet, but shooting at that high resolution allows me to zoom in with 4K content and give you a level of detail and seeing these exhibits and seeing these items in the exhibit with just unfreaking precedented, uncomfortable detail. That's my full intention. It's not just to upload standard 1080p HD video, which if that's all your monitor can handle, that's just fine. But I mean, I'm being paid to make this the best content ever. So I'm going to make it super high resolution, super pretty, cinematic to the best of my ability. And it's only going to get better as time goes because we're all still learning. And as we go, I'm just going to be getting better and better at video editing and knowing DaVinci Resolve and doing fancy things with it. And it's just going to get better and better. But my full intention is to use the epitome of technology, not $50,000 red cameras, because that's a bit much to ask first day. but making very high quality 4K content, uploading videos regularly at 4K, but the videos would be shot at, some of it, in 4K so that I can get the detail in 4K, zooming way in, shooting high frame rate 4K for cinematic slow motion shots at 4K. Oh, it's going to be so cool. It's going to be so cool. And again, at the end of the day, the content you listen to for Geek Therapy Radio and the content you watch for Geek Therapy Radio and Houston Museum of Natural Science is just going to it's just so cool. It's such a cool opportunity. And the hours alone personally are going to make it so much better. I can actually, if I do have to go do a shoot somewhere or go to the museum for any reason, coming home at a normal godly hour around 5:30, like a normal person, and being able to spend a couple hours with my son before putting him to bed, is an amazing, amazing blessing. Just the free time across the board. There's so many times now where friends are, pre-COVID, and we're going to get post-COVID soon enough, believe me. Say, hey, can you come out and meet us for happy hour somewhere, or come over and play video games or something like that? And it's like, I work till 8 p.m. I don't get home till 9 p.m. That's like bedtime for, winding down time for a lot of working professionals. It's not a good time just to be hanging out. Now I can say yes to more stuff, theoretically. I mean, I've got a baby, so that's still going to play into it. But I'm going to have freedom to do things. I want to game stream more. I want to get the Geek Therapy Radio Twitch channel going. And you know what's going to be awesome? This podcast is pretty much just me bringing you up to speed and me being just geeking out about this new opportunity in life. So I hope you're enjoying it thus far. One of the items, kind of the unbendable items that I put on this items list for the museum to purchase to make my job, be able to do my job. One of the items on there, and this is easier said than done, is an RTX 3090, which is the best consumer video card available on Earth right now. I say consumer. There are prosumer, there's Quadro cards, there are higher end graphics options out there that cost thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. But no, I'm saying just the best graphics card that theoretically you could just buy at Micro Center or Best Buy and throw into your PC. Right now it's the 3090. The next would be the 6900 XT, right, from AMD, but it still doesn't quite come close to 3090. I think it's a better value for money, I think the 6900 XT is. Didn't know we were going to talk about graphics card in this episode, but the reason I'm going 3090 anyways is that it works the best, gets the best results with DaVinci Resolve. And since that is my new exclusive video editor, I'm going NVIDIA because it's just going to be it's going to best serve the content using DaVinci Resolve. So the point to take away from there is I'll have a 3090. So I could do Twitch streams at 4K, playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 60 frames a second in 4K. Or like 45 frames a second, 45 to 60, whatever. I'm going to have a 3090 at my disposal, obviously as a workhorse for content creation. But hey, side effect. 4K gaming, 8K gaming, I'll be able to showcase that card a little bit. And that's not something that I would normally have access to. On working right now, I do not have the ability to go out and spend $2,000 on a graphics card for just pure recreation. But now I need it for my freaking job. It's like a salesman needs a car for a job. I need this graphics card to most effectively produce video content for the museum. It's just the side effect is that it's also awesome at gaming. I can get started. Let's say, here's the other thing, and I know what you're all thinking this, those of you in the know. Easier said than done getting a 3090. There's supply chain issues. I just did an episode on how evil NVIDIA's being by setting aside $175 million worth of inventory to sell to digital currency miners. Needless to say, in COVID pandemic production issues, supply issues, it's hard to get a 3090. It's very hard. So I don't anticipate me getting a 3090 right off the bat. I hope so. I mean, if the timing's right and you see one at Micro Center right there, I just so happen to see it split second, I get lucky lightning strikes, then I will pick it up. But I can produce content with what I have right now. The best graphics card that I have right now is my GTX 980 from 2014. I just purchased myself my 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 processor, which edits 4K footage beautifully, so I can produce great content right now. But the 3090 will make it a lot faster turnaround. I'll be able to do more edits versus like fusion edits and things that require all the CUDA cores and tensor and all that kind of stuff. 3090 will facilitate, which even the M1 chip here, it struggles. Fusion editing with the M1 chip really, really bogs it down, and I don't want that bog. I don't want there to be any bog in the production production line, any at all. Hence the 3090. I already have a good processor, a 3900X. There's no need to upgrade that. Although I want to, 5950X would be amazing. That's probably the next thing I'll do, but we'll see about that. That might be an out-of-pocket thing. We'll see. I have enough RAM, 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM at 3600 megahertz. I can overclock that, but I keep it at a stable XMP profile of 3600 megahertz. And a couple of PCI Express 4.0 M.2 drives at 5,000 read and 4,000 write. So the editing rig is going to get amazing, and I fully plan on doing a video about that upgrade path. What else other cool? I'm going to need a better editing monitor. You can, and I probably have to get started with just use a normal like 4K TV and a 1080 monitor or whatever. But one of the things on my list is a 4K content creation, video editing, photo editing monitor, which is a bit different than just your run-of-the-mill gaming monitor. The name of the game with photo editing and video editing monitors is color accuracy, among other things, HDR10 and Atmos Vision and all that good stuff. I'm going to need a better video monitor to do that with, and that's on the list too. We'll see what happens there. This is all day one stuff. The only reason I'm relaying all this information to you is because I have just officially accepted the position and just officially put in my 2 weeks notice at iHeart. So that's all very, very, very exciting stuff. I cannot wait to be just more available to you, the listener, with these flexible hours now. That email, by the way, the email is the same as far as the new email. If you try to email me at iHeartMedia, I'm not sure how long that email account's going to be active. So I'm not even going to repeat that email address. Don't email me there. But you can absolutely email me, Johnny@geektherapyradio.com. One more time, and I'll put it in the description. Johnny, very easy, JOHNNY, @geektherapyradio.com. You don't even have to email me that way. You can just go to geektherapyradio.com, and the first thing you see is a submission field for submitting comments and whatever you want to say to me. And a lot of you email me through there. Thank you very much. A lot of you have also been going over to the Twitter and following me on Twitter as per my call, or as for my request for you to do so. So thank you for doing that. Continue to do so. It's no longer critical. Just subscribe to me on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. Geek Therapy Radio, Twitter and Facebook, because you want to. It's no longer imperative because I didn't know if I was going to have this show or not, if there was going to be an interruption, which is why I said it's critical you follow me over there for any updates. I didn't wind up having to do those updates because I was given the green light to keep Geek Therapy Radio at iHeart. So I don't work for iHeart. They don't pay me right now, but my show is still hosted by iHeart. It's still on an iHeart radio station. And it still can get syndicated and can enjoy all that stuff. It's kind of separate. I can still sell the show, sell advertising on the show. That all is unchanged. Basically, my 9 to 5 is the only thing that changes here. So it's all very exciting. And how many minutes are we? 33 minutes. I did want to actually talk about some topics here. I will keep everybody in the loop as we go through the next days and weeks here with what's going on at the Houston Museum of Natural Science job and how life changes and everything like that. I'll keep you abreast of that. But I did want to move on in this podcast to talk about some actual kind of geek things or topical things here. First of all, and it kind of pertains to this life change and doing a lot of editing at home. This data cap that I have with Xfinity, which is Comcast, cannot stand, man. I'm going to have to eliminate that data cap, which means that I'm going to have to retool my internet and TV plan, possibly. It might just be as simple as I just kind of bite the bullet and pay the extra $30 a month to remove the data cap. If I'm working from home and I am uploading and downloading all this video content, 4K footage, all that stuff, data cap is going to be no bueno. It's 1.2 terabytes is the data cap, at least here in Houston, and that's kind of standard across the country, if not the world, where data caps exist. There are other countries where data caps don't exist because they're illegal, and they should be illegal. And that was the point I'm getting at, is right now I'm going to have to remove the data cap at my house. My internet connection is no longer going to be recreational. It's going to be for work. So I have to call Comcast, call Xfinity, and say, remove the data cap. You got me by the cojones, so I'm going to have to pay $30 extra a month, but I can't have the data cap. It'd be cheap. I can't be chewing through 2, 3, 4 terabytes of data a month and being hit with all those charges per gigabyte over, per 10 gigs over. Ridiculous. And that's my point here, is more states are filing not litigation. More states are trying to remove the data cap, claiming that it's illegal, and that Xfinity through this pandemic has demonstrated that data caps serve no purpose in maintaining the health of the infrastructure. And I've pointed that out many shows ago, I think back in March or May, that one of the concerns with working from home during this pandemic was the strain that it was going to put on network infrastructure, and that has not happened. There has been, yes, increased traffic, dramatically increased traffic in the infrastructure, but it has not even come close to breaking a sweat. There is so much overhead, even in pandemic times where everyone's working from home and doing Zooms and consuming as much Netflix as humanly possible and downloading all the 150 gigabyte games from Steam and just using the internet more than human history has ever used it ever before in the past. The internet infrastructure has not broken a sweat or even come close to strain. And this has forced the issue that data caps are a scam, that companies like Comcast have imposed it purely for profits, and that it should be illegal because it's not necessary. So 12 more states in the United States have opened legal cases against Comcast specifically here to remove the data caps, stating that they are unlawful and it is basically just evil. So maybe Texas will be among those states that says data caps are illegal and data caps are lifted. I know a lot of places in Europe there's no data caps, and I think in Australia there's no data caps. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're from any of those areas. Data caps are really an American greed thing and ridiculous. And it disproportionately, especially during COVID times, affects lower income communities, lower income customers who are theoretically stuck paying these overages when they exceed the data cap because all their kids are doing online schooling plus everything else. Now, to Comcast's credit, they have lifted those data caps. They did lift those data caps for like 2 or 3 months during the beginning of the pandemic. I'm not sure what the state of it is now, but Comcast has been addressing it, and to their credit, have not been screwing over lower income customers. In fact, Comcast has huge outreach efforts for lower income customers, up to and including free internet for kids going to online school or doing school online. But the issue of the data caps still remains. For the short term, I'm going to lift the data cap myself by paying the extra $30, but hopefully that ends soon. Hopefully Congress or whoever just votes down. I think Ajit Pai's leaving. Didn't he leave? Was he chairperson of the SEC, basically the net neutrality and all that stuff? He's leaving, so maybe the U.S. will rule that data caps are unlawful. We can only hope and pray that becomes the case. Either way, I'm going to have to update my service and remove the data cap. I would take slower internet speeds, but at removing the data cap. Like right now, I'm at 400 megs per second, which is awesome. Awesomely fast. I can download Steam games lickety-split, but I would take half the speed. I would take a quarter of the speed and remove data caps. Speed isn't the most important thing to me. Yes, it's important for uploads and downloads of huge 4K, potentially 8K video files, raw video files, but speed isn't the end-all, be-all. I would rather have no data cap and keep the really fast latency. I would rather have fiber get out to my neighborhood. As soon as fiber is available in Missouri City, where I live, I'm going to do that. So, anyways, it's got me thinking. Last thing... Oh, no. Second to last thing. I won't spend too much time on this. NASA is extending the Juno mission. So it is making the spacecraft now go on more explorations while it's out there. So the moons of Jupiter, Io, Europa, and Ganymede. So the Juno Explorer is going to be looking at the volcanoes on Io and Ganymede and Europa and exploring the moons of Jupiter. If you haven't seen pictures and photographs from what Juno has been sending back from Jupiter, the planet itself, it almost makes you want to cry at how detailed and how wondrous Jupiter is up close. It's amazing. And so now that Juno is going to alternate its orbit to start exploring Io, Europa, and Ganymede, seeing those moons up close. I think, what is it, Europa or Titan that is most, theoretically can conduce life, like under the ice layer, maybe due to volcanic activity underneath the ocean, the thermal vents, that perhaps life could exist there. Anyways, we can explore that a little bit further using the Juno spacecraft. So just imagine the footage and photos that it's sending back from Jupiter. Now imagine those photos from Io, Europa, and Ganymede. It's going to be amazing. Amazing. So that's the space news. The last thing I wanted to end with is, I don't know if you have seen this or not, maybe come across your news feeds or whatever, the breakthrough in battery technology. If you have been listening to Geek Therapy Radio for any length of time, you know how passionate I am about battery technology, that part and parcel of the future of all electronics and processing power and thermals and all that stuff has to do with batteries, has to do with energy density. And the example I always give usually is smartwatches. Smartwatches, for traditional, like your old Casio, you put in a button cell battery and that lasts for years. But with smartwatches, you have to, what was the first generation of iWatch or Apple Watch? It was like 18 hours, not even a full day, and that's because of the battery. So processing has to get more efficient, coding has to get more efficient. A lot of that's happening on ARM, obviously, but part and parcel to that is that energy density in batteries has to get higher. So in a smartwatch, let's say you have a 120 milliamp hour 3.7 volt battery. Now, due to the doubling of energy density with solid state batteries, now that 120 milliamp hours is now effectively 240, if not higher, meaning all that many more days of runtime. Now, for electric cars, this is mostly where it's coming from. Is what is the company? NIO has released news, I guess, of their new solid state battery pack, which is 150 kilowatt hours. 150 kilowatt hours. That is about a doubling in energy density. I don't know if it's exactly a doubling. Maybe that was me misspeaking, but I'll say it right here. The new energy density with the solid state batteries is 360 watt hours per kilogram. So it's 50% more in the case of a 100 kilowatt battery pack. So what NIO's new solid state battery offers is 360 watts of electricity per kilogram. Amazing. I think at best it used to be like 100 watt hour or 200 watt hours per kilogram. Again, don't quote me. The only point I'm trying to get across here is that solid state batteries are the future, and the future is here, but almost here, because NIO says that they won't supply their vehicles or any other manufacturers for that matter if they so choose to use them as a supplier. These 150 kilowatt batteries won't be out. Solid state batteries won't come out until Q1 of 2022. So that's next year. So we'll see how that all goes down. But new battery packs with much higher energy density, facilitated by solid state battery technology, is coming very soon. So I'm thinking, like, we'll see how kind of NIO says that its cars will be able to be retrofitted with the new technology when it's coming out. So let's say you have a car that has a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. When the 150 kilowatt battery pack comes out, you'll be able to just pop that same thing, boop, right in your car, 50 extra kilowatts. That is a lot of range. That is a ton more range. 150 kilowatts in my Chevy Bolt, going up from 60 kilowatts, would be well over 500 miles of range going freeway speeds in my car. if you're hypermiling in a Chevy Bolt and you have 150 kilowatts to work with, that is around 1,200 miles. Like if you're going 30 miles an hour, which no one would ever do on the freeway, but if you keep it to 30 miles an hour, you can expect over 1,000 miles of range from a 150 kilowatt battery in a Chevy Bolt. This doesn't exist. It may never exist in a Chevy Bolt. I'm just putting some numbers out there to help you conceptualize how much of a cool thing this is that solid state batteries are viable and coming down the pipe in the future. It is a major radical improvement in energy density. I would imagine anytime you increase energy density, you're increasing risk of runaway explosion, runaway reaction. But we'll see how. I mean, these are supposed to be safer or more safety measures instated, but we'll see how that all goes down. The battery chemistry of this thing. So the electrolyte, I don't know what all this is because I'm not a chemist, but I will repeat some graphics I'm seeing here. For the electrolyte, it's an N-C2 solidification hybrid electrolyte. Okay, whatever that means. I will delve into this in a later episode. I'll get nitty gritty with this, and I'll probably have a chemist on to talk about all this. But the anode is an inorganic pre-lithium Si/C composite anode. And the cathode is a nano-coating nickel ultra-rich cathode. So that's all just words. Even to me right now, that's word. I know it's chemicals and chemistry, but it's all just word. What really needs to be taken away, the reason why that matters is it's less resistance. And that is one of the most critical things in any battery technology, is the least resistance possible. The least resistance possible, electrical resistance possible, is also a safety matter. When you have more resistance, you have more heat. That's the way your oven works. That's the way your toaster works, is resistive heat. Coils heat up because they resist the flow of electrons, and they glow red hot. That's resistance. And in those applications, you want the resistance because that heats up the elements, the heating elements. But that's not what you want in a battery. You do not want a chemistry in a battery, especially at the anode and cathode, that resists the flow of electrons. So it's very important that not only the electrolyte be very non-restrictive, it's also critically important that the anode and cathode offer very low electrical resistance, because you do not want the anode heating up, you do not want the cathode heating up in a battery with this amount of energy density. That's the big takeaway. Before we do another episode down the line with an actual chemist to talk about the chemistry of solid-state batteries, what you need to take away from now is that solid-state batteries offer much less internal resistance, both in the electrolyte and in the anode and cathode. So the positive and the negative leads of the battery. And that is critically important. So Q1 2022 is when we should start seeing if somebody doesn't get there sooner. I know Toyota's working on a thing, and Chevy's working on a thing, and Tesla announced that they're working on solid-state batteries. Tesla said, and I'll start wrapping it up here, Elon Musk said they were tinkering around with the idea, experimenting with the idea of not only going to solid-state batteries, but making the body of the car in a solid-state battery. And I know what you're thinking, and because that's what I was thinking, and so that removes the need. I suppose you could still have just a huge battery pack underneath the floorboards, but you could pack in a lot of energy density and a lot more electricity if you made like the A pillars and B pillars, C pillars, and the roof and the hood and the trunk and the door panels and everything themselves batteries. That's all sounds fine and dandy, and it could be a potential weight saving because you don't need the battery pack to exist below the floor. You can have the actual like body and structure of the car be a battery. Sounds all well and dandy. Now think about even a low-speed collision. Think about the runaway chemical reaction that occurs in lithium-ion batteries. So we've seen, vapes catching on fire and laptop batteries being punctured and cell phone batteries. Samsung, what is it, the Note 7 bursting into flames with just regular lithium-ion, lithium polymer technology. That's the type of damage you can do with that chemistry. Now, with the extra energy density of solid-state batteries, think of a chemical reaction on that scale, it's only going to be worse. It would only be worse. There's more energy to expel over the same amount of time, if that's the scale you want to look at. So I am not, initially, I don't understand how they could possibly even conceivably make a car and make it legal on the road, have it pass safety inspection, when you make the actual doors themselves in the frame of the body itself a solid-state battery. Knowing what a runaway reaction is and that it would burn everybody alive inside. And it's not like a gasoline fire. Battery fires, they rage so much hotter for so much longer than gasoline fire. I mean, it all depends. It depends on so many factors. Don't at me. It depends on a lot of factors. But increased energy density means increased energy that has to go somewhere in the event of a runaway reaction scenario. So I don't see how they could make the hood of a car and the bumper of a car made out of battery. That seems like bad news bears to me. We'll see what the future holds. I mean, it's a cool idea. We'll see how safe. Maybe they can make a battery that's so safe that you could shoot it and it wouldn't burst into flame. We'll see. We will see. I think that's where I'm going to wrap up the show for today. It's a long podcast, but I had a lot to say. A lot to say. This could be one of the most important episodes that I have ever put out on Geek Therapy Radio. I feel like going home and playing with my tape machine. Like a tape. I've been looking at reel-to-reels. I've been looking at the Tascam, MSR 24. It's the 24-track audio. So 24 audio tracks on a 1-inch tape. Typically, 24-track in the studio setting, 24-track tape has been 2 inches. So cramming 24 audio tracks onto a tape half the width can cause some issues, especially with low-end program material, with low frequencies. But whatever. The other thing is they're very expensive, but I'm looking at them. And my dream is to one day have a 16 to 24 track analog reel-to-reel. That is my dream. Before I am dead, I want one of those. And if I am interested, I need to think about getting it sooner than later because they are not going down in price. They will only continue to go up in price. But I've got reel-to-reels on the mind. And anytime I get reel-to-reels on the mind, it's unobtainium. They are very expensive, too expensive to justify on a whim, at least. But I do have cassette player, a really good cassette player that I put in a new pinch roller. That Sony TC615S, TCK T615S, whatever. It's a 3-head bias adjustment, calibration, all that. Makes really good recordings. So anytime I think about reel-to-reels and playing with reel-to-reels, I know that I have a tiny reel-to-reel called a cassette deck to play with that effectively does the same thing. But a 24-track reel-to-reel or a 16-track reel-to-reel, you bet your bottom dollar I would make many videos and many recordings with a 24-track or a 16-track reel-to-reel. So anyways, I'm going to tinker more with that kind of thing when I get home. Thank you so much for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. As always, with every show, please remember, if you don't remember anything else, that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of giving love. You are worthy of receiving love. You're good enough when people say, I love you, man, or I love you, girl, that you're worthy of it. You don't have to think, oh, I'm not worthy of it and be ashamed of it and everything. You are worthy of love. They love you. You're worthy of accepting that. Just accept it. You're worthy of it. And you're also worthy of your own self-respect and your own self-love. I promise you are. It's this terrible spiral that we can get into when we don't love ourselves. Terrible spiral. And I won't get too deep into it at the end of this long podcast, but just don't give into it. It's not true. That little demon voice in your head telling you you're not good enough, and it just compounds on itself and compounds on itself and compounds on itself, make worse decisions and worse decisions and worse decisions because you don't think you're valuable. You don't think you're worthy of making good decisions. I'm already so bad. I'm already so terrible. When am I going to start making good decisions? No, you can make good decisions because you are worthy of the love that comes from it. And you're worthy of the self-respect that comes from it. No matter where you are in life right now, you're worthy of love, your own self-love and self-respect too. Please know that. And I guess that's it. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy this bump music. It's something I created a few years ago. What's it called? Fallen? Something like that. Thank you for listening. Talk to you later.